Welcome back to RXMuscle's Iron Road to the Olympia 2022, brought to you by Muscle Tech. I'm Dave Palumbo, and today's interview is going to be one hell of a treat for you guys and for me. We have seven-time Mr. Olympia here today, Phil Heath, and he's going to be the official live stream commentator. And I love that new title you have, Phil.
I do too, actually. This is going to be, very exciting. We have a ton of competitors. I think we have over 400 that are showing up.
Crazy.
And they all, especially in, I would say, the Classic, the Open, even 212. I mean, there's a lot of controversy going on as far as like who really is going to dominate this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you that. There's a lot of competitors up there on that stage, and we always, historically, the Olympia was always like the best of the best. This year we had a long season. We had a lot more qualifiers. And do you like the fact that there's a lot of people up there, or should there be an elimination round, or what's your thoughts on that?
Personally, I feel like it should be condensed in some way, but it all depends on how the show runs in length of time. If it becomes like a 7-hour event, I mean, that's when we all realize like, yeah, this is a little bit excessive. Yeah. But as a competitor, I would feel bad if I was in that. Now it's not like a third or fourth call out. We're talking about like a 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th call out.
Right.
Group. That's really going to showcase the athlete's professional and composure. Because how do you stay composed if you're like the last person getting picked up in a game of kickball as a kid? We all know what that felt like. Right. And this is pretty much no different, other than the fact that you're wearing very little clothes there, and you've trained an entire year, let alone part of your life, to be adjudicated.
Sure. I don't even know how you solve that problem. It's an interesting conundrum, because everyone qualified, legitimately as per the rules, but it's like there's just a lot of people that are going to be, like you said, left out, so to speak. It was like the old days in the Nationals. There was so many people in weight classes, they would do that elimination round and get it down to the top 15, who would then do their routines, and everyone else went home. That was it.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about it. I mean, I don't, if anyone, up there, Jake or Dan or Jim, want my input, I mean, yeah, I'm willing to share. But I do realize one thing is that if they did an elimination round maybe the day before, it would only make it worse for especially a bodybuilder being dehydrated for 3 days instead of 2.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's where it gets really dicey as to what an elimination round really means. I personally would believe that you should have less qualifications, more invite only. Like you could have like, how the Arnold Classic has like it's invite. You should probably limit, and this may piss a lot of promoters off. I still feel like the point system is good, but some of these shows I don't think they should have a qualification for the Olympia. Some of them they're not as strong.
Right.
They're not strong. And athletes they're smart. They're like, oh, well, I'll go ahead and bypass the Olympia just so I can stay in shape and then go scoop up an easy win right after the Olympia to qualify for the calendar year. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot. And I feel bad for promoters hearing that. I know that they're like, well, what the hell, Phil? Like, we should be able to have athletes win our show and go to Olympia. I agree. But at some point, if the numbers increase, it only makes it harder for that lower tier athlete.
Right.
And Jake Wood, I mean, that's money that's coming out of his pocket, I'm sure, to fly everybody in and per diems and hotels and all that, just for a person that it's different if it's only like 25, 30 people. If you're going over 60 people, do we even know what that person that placed 31st looks like? Like, it's tough,
How are you going to do a press conference with 40 people,
I mean, you really don't at that point. You kind of just, then it becomes even harder, right? Do we just focus on who's the top 5 and then disrespect the other 5? And
Well, for a press conference, it should be the most popular people, right? And
Yeah.
the highest ranking people. That's always what a press conference has been about. It was never about fair and equal, you know?
Right. And that's where the athletes do have an opportunity to use their social media platforms. And if their physique isn't like in that first top 5, top 6, maybe your mouth is.
Yeah, you're right. You have 1 million people who follow you on Instagram. We're going to invite you to the press conference. That's for sure,
Yeah.
right? Interesting. It is an interesting situation. I wonder if we'll see it again next year, because the season will probably be shorter, because, you know, I don't foresee them doing the Olympia around Christmas time next year, you know?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything as far as next year's plans go, but I do know that athletes are going to have to really figure out their schedule momentarily after this event. Like, they should already be figuring out like what their off season currently looks like, what show to pick.
Right.
And you would hope that majority of the guys and girls only have to do a maximum of 3 tries to get their way to, you know, to the Olympia.
Right. Yeah, true. You got to plan if you want to do the Arnold. It's like 2 months later, you know, it's crazy.
You're already probably, I mean, at this point, you're probably just saying, screw it. If you don't win the damn Olympia, you might as well just throw your hat in the Arnold Classic.
Right. I mean, you're in shape, for God's sakes. Right. You're right.
Already in shape. You might as well just go hit up the buffet on us. Hit up the buffet in Vegas and just load up, and then ride it on out through Christmas. You know, enjoy your holiday, and then January 1st, you're like, I might as well crank it out 8 weeks, 9 weeks, and be ready.
Phil, I've seen you on like talk shows, and I've seen you being interviewed by people on, like, you know, mainstream TV and stuff like that. And you're very good. You're very articulate. You
Thank
can
you.
express yourself well. You have good insights into our sport and just in life in general, which is, you know, that just comes with, I guess, age and maturity. But I think it was a brilliant move on Dan and Jake's part to hire you to do the live stream. Were you surprised when they contacted you to do it? Was it like something that kind of caught you off guard initially?
It didn't catch me off guard, and I appreciate the sentiments, Dave. But no, it didn't catch me off guard. I was just wanting to make sure that they knew that this wasn't about Phil Heath. This was about me talking about what I see. That's it. This is, you know, because the last thing I want to do is have people think, oh, he's just coming to talk about, you know, the trophies and this and that. No, I'm here to bring you perspective on how I won that, in coinciding with the athletes that you see on stage, what may be going through their mind, preparing, or what the judges are really looking for. And no, like they hit me up. We had calls over Zoom, and then Dan being local and I'm local here in Florida, we met up, you know, made it official. And, you know, this is all about the sport. I mean, if I'm not going to be on stage, I'm going to be doing something to contribute. So this is my contribution to the sport I love and its fans, but also the athletes, because when I announced that I was going to do this, a lot of the athletes were extremely positive, and they commented, they DM'd me, some text me, called. They were just like, you know, with that, like, you know, the athletes, the respect that I got from, you know, men and women that are like, hey, it's one of us that's talking about us, you know, that means a lot. So, you know, shout out to Jake Wood and Dan Solomon, the whole Olympia crew making that happen, Jim Mannion, everybody being in alignment. I'm just thankful that I have that real social equity within the industry, that they know I'm going to do it a good service. Yeah,
well, like you said, you have good insights, and that's important. Let me ask you this question: Are you in Florida now? Is that what you said?
Yeah. So it's funny because when we were texting, you're like, yeah, my time zone. I'm like, dude, I'm on the same time. You know, the athletes were really respectful. You know, they really wanted me to, you know, do this, and I'm very thankful and appreciative that I have their blessing, Jim Mannion, everybody involved. And overall, I'm just very eager to, you know, talk about this sport, because here's how I looked at it, Dave. When these athletes are grinding, and they're trying to essentially go for the top title, right? But they're also trying to do what? They're trying to get their numbers up on social media so then they can get sponsors,
right?
And keep the current sponsors. What sucks is when these athletes get like ridiculed online through journalists.
Right.
And get it. Like, you gotta, like, I get it. But in my opinion, you could say, well, you want the athletes to have really tough skin. I get that. I totally agree. But at the same time, there are people that are very layman's when it comes to this sport. They're not willing to invest time and money into an athlete who they hear negative things about.
Right.
They're like, well, if, like, you know, oh, Phil Heath has a gut, like, we're gonna say, oh, he has a fucking stomach. Like, we don't want to support that. Like,
Right.
you know, maybe a sponsor says, I don't want to support that. So imagine a person that's like on the cusp, like a 10th place person, that someone's saying he doesn't have any legs or arms or shoulders, and saying it in such a, like, a mean way, where the casual observer is like, dude, like, I just sat here for 6 hours listening to people be negative. Like,
right. You want to do both. You want to show off what the person's, the great things about the person, and maybe what the person needs to work on. And I think coming from a person who's a 7-time Mr. Olympia, there's a lot more validity because you did it at the highest level. And so if you're critiquing someone, I think people are going to be much more likely to accept what your critique is, as opposed to you just being a negative Nelly the whole show, you know?
Yeah, and trust me, I could use a certain lens that was used on me, on them, but it could get really nasty, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's not necessarily edifying the athlete. So it's going to be that would be probably my only challenge on Friday and Saturday. But I love this sport and I love the athletes, and I'm not just saying that shit. Like, I really do love these guys. Yeah. I know what they're going through. But I do expect all the men and women to really bring it. You know, that's the biggest thing. Like,
sure.
The message is, and I know you say the same thing. Do yourselves a favor, come in looking good, because if you don't, we have to talk about it. Like,
exactly.
And it's
not
like,
not that we don't like you. It's we got to critique what's up there, you know?
Yeah. And I'll be honest, Dave, I mean, this has allowed me a greater understanding of how yourself and other people have viewed myself or others in the sport. You know, when you take a step back, you're like, well, it's some people, like, I will say, like, some people made it a personal attack on me, but that's them. But when it comes to, like, critique, you're just trying to spit news. Like, that's it. And I can say that there was times where I didn't take it very well, but there's also times that I did take it extremely well. Like, I can tell you, Dave, real quick, if someone says something negative, I would say, on what percentage are they right? And if it's only 10%, then I'm going to be like, this guy's fucking idiot, you know? But if it's 50%, then I got to let that sting a little bit and try to correct it. And I've had those moments, but you know, I say that to tell the athletes, like, when yourself or me or Dennis James or whoever is saying something, ask yourself, on what percentage are they correct? And if it outweighs your own opinion, then you kind of have to, like, it's gonna sting. It's gonna sting, dude. Like, it's gonna fucking sting, man. Right. You just gotta keep working at it.
Yeah, I just want to remind people, you can sign up at olympiaproductions.com for the live stream. Right now it's $59 for the whole weekend, the whole premium package. I know they're going to raise the price next week, so guys, sign up. I just signed up myself because I won't be there personally. And one of the reasons I'm really happy this year is I get to actually hear you doing the commentation. So that's going to make my job easier.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Because you know what? I can watch it at home, and you know, it's nowadays with 4K video, the video at home is pretty good, but you're going to be sitting right there and looking. And so if I'm not sure of the way a person looks at home when I'm watching from home, you're giving people a better bird's eye view of what's going on, because you're right there, and people can take that to the bank, because if you're saying it, I guarantee that's exactly what's going on there. And I think that let's face it, Phil, most of the people who watch the Mr. Olympia are not going to be in that auditorium. They're going to be in their house watching it on the live stream. And that's a huge, huge way that people view bodybuilding nowadays. It's changed. back in the day, everyone went to the show because if you were a bodybuilding fan, that's the only way to see it, and at least to see it in the right perspective. So
yes.
It's changed completely. So not only is the experience, the viewing experience different, we're all watching from our computers or our TVs or whatever, but I want someone who's going to be there telling me what I'm seeing and that it's actually right. And that's why it's important that they got you in that booth.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it.
Phil, you're one of the few people to, routinely take Big Ramy out in competition head to head for many years. What do you think competitors need to do to take this guy out in the day and age that we're competing in right now, this year? Because a lot of people say Ramy's unbeatable. You've beat him. You were smaller than him. You were narrower than him. Yes, you had a lot of gifts around cartoonish muscle and, muscle maturity, and your conditioning was always retarded looking. I mean, what would be the strategy if you were competing today, or the advice you'd give to guys who are going up against Ramy in this lineup?
My advice would be to outcondition him. Number one, if you're not going to outcondition this guy, forget it. If you think you're just going to beat him on your own shape, like I can go down the list. I mean, for myself, like the way I approach Ramy is to say, always try to negate his strengths. What is his strengths? Okay, well, he's wider, but for myself, I had rounder muscles. So I wanted to make sure that I was more 3D than him. We use that term really loosely right now, I believe, in our sport. Like, everybody isn't fucking 3D. I can tell you that.
No way.
They really aren't. Because if they were, they would be able to take out guys like Ramy. But in order to get 3D, it's all about the muscle per square inch. So guys like William Bonax can stand next to even Ramy and have beaten him in the past because he has more quality muscle per square inch. But when Ramy gets in really good shape, like we see right here, it's really fucking hard to beat. So I would use the same approach I always did, was just out-condition him, and my muscle just happens to jump out better. But if I was going down the list, Brandon has to be in better condition, period.
Yeah.
If he's not in better condition than what we've seen him, it's going to be an uphill battle. And we could talk about his upper body compared to his lower body. That's irrelevant. What I care about more is the conditioning. If I could see him, if people said, oh my gosh, he's ripped, he's shredded, that's improvement. And I think he would be rewarded for that improvement. That's why Ramy won the Olympia, because he finally got shredded. So when everybody keeps saying that they need to be 10 pounds, or I'm going to be 5 pounds or 10 pounds, 15 pounds bigger, that isn't always better. You guys never heard me say I'm going to be 10 pounds bigger next year.
Nope.
Never. It was just, I'm going to come back, with maybe a little bit more roundness, or I didn't peak as well, or whatever. And actually, I really didn't even say much. I just said, you'll see. But if I'm Brandon, I'm going for conditioning, because he's also got to keep away the Hadi Choopans, the Derek Lunsfords. If you're Hadi or Derek, you got to come in. You got to come in shredded, like just stupid shredded. And if everyone comes in shredded, a Nick Walker comes in shredded, everybody comes in ripped, then that definitely makes the judges say, is Ramy shredded?
Right.
Say no, then it's like, well, why is everybody else shredded and he's not? So we're just going to award him, first place for just being big, but not being as ripped as these other guys, because they clearly have improved their conditioning. And so Dave, you competed, you have clients, you've been to shows, and what do judges normally tell someone? You just didn't come in ripped enough. They never usually say you need to be bigger. It's very rare.
Right.
On
conditioning win shows, we know that,
Yeah. So, I think that's the ticket. You got to try to. You can't let this man out condition you. I do know that they're in a bad spot with Ramy, because I describe it as bad because anytime you have an off year like Ramy had last year, it's only going to mean that he's going to come in ready this year.
Sure.
So you have to, like, as a competitor going against that, you have to keep in mind he's probably going to be on. So what does on really mean? Well, you're going to have to, run your own race. But the fact of the matter is that Ramy from the side has those humongous legs that get shredded like crazy. From the back, I mean, you can kind of make up some ground, like as far as the conditioning, but you're not going to get him from the side with that quad sweep like that. It's just stupid. It makes it just no. Like Hadi has the best chance. We haven't seen Derek.
Why do you think Hadi Choopan has the best chance? Tell me.
I say because last year I felt like he should have been at least second. I felt that on Friday night I had him winning.
Wow.
I did. I was like, shit, man. And, you know, I'm watching on the screen just like everybody else. So
Yeah.
Like, I'm not there, but I also, you know, I had him winning, and, not by a huge margin, but I had him winning. I was like, he's complete. Like, what more do we want? And he got third, and I was like, well, they chose Brandon over him based on shape. They didn't choose him based on conditioning.
Sure.
So it was just a shape contest for that. But we know that Hadi has, out of the two, he has more exponential growth than probably Brandon and Ramy has because he was in 212 all those years. Right. So, and the guy trains like a freaking animal too. I mean, and he's, you know, he doesn't have distractions like in America. Like this guy is a beast. And he has, you know, Hadi at his side, and I know they're looking to peak, but I did feel last year I had him no less than second. But this year, I think he can knock on the door. And look, it's going to always come down to the champion being off for him to get dethroned. We've seen that. But Hadi definitely is knocking on that door, and he's obviously hungry for the title. But you got him, you got Nick. I mean, he's, you know, he declared that he's going to be Mr. Olympia, and I love that confidence. But now it's time to show it. So he's going to have to figure out what power shots he has, like that pose. That's a really good shot.
Yeah.
These are power poses that he's going to have to really hit next to each person. He's going to basically have to mow down Hadi, Bonac, and then Ramy, like, to win. Like, it's not going to be Andrew Jack. Like, Ian Valier, like I think Ian is probably a guy that's like a fucking dark horse, like a Samson Dowda, so to speak.
Right.
You know, there's so many guys that are at that same level. They may not have the same look, but they're probably at the same level. But I think Nick has a really good opportunity to shock some people. It's really going to be about how he nails it on Friday as opposed to Saturday. I really think because the prejudging is going to be long, Dave. The prejudging
has to be.
Anyone not practicing posing for 5 call outs, like I remember seeing those videos, I'm sure you've seen them too, of Ramy and Dennis James, like him going through the paces. If every athlete isn't doing that times 3, you're gonna fade like a motherfucker on Friday night. You're gonna get exposed. And I guarantee you there's people that are going to not be well prepped regarding like how long can they hold these mandatories.
Yep.
That's the real conditioning. The conditioning, holding onto a freaking step mill, dragging your ass, like doing this. We all see the videos. This isn't going to work. You know, the judges are going to have to put, and this is nothing from outside sources. This is just me speaking from experience. When you have that many people around that same level, you got to do more call outs. You got to push the physique. So it's going to be interesting for sure.
What about Hunter Labrada? I mean, he was 4th last year. A lot of people, you know, praising him, shape, structure. He's added 10 pounds of muscle. Where does he fit into this equation?
I don't see him beating Nick, but okay. I mean, he beat Nick last year.
Right.
My thing with the whole like adding muscle, what does it mean? Who is he going to out condition? Right. Is he fuller in the chest? Because that's an area where I look at and like, well, that could use some improvement. But what power shots does he have that's going to make people give him a higher placing this year? Like, what power shots? Right. Like, at the top of your head, like when you think of a champion, you always know they have like 1 or 2 power shots that can be anyone in the world. I don't know what power shots Hunter has that's going to beat all these guys in the call out. So it's like,
what do you think Sean Roden's power shot was?
It was an ab and thigh all day. Like against me, it was an ab and thigh. I mean, we all know, like, you'd have to be some type of weirdo to think that he beats me muscular.
Right.
You know, but that was his power shot, because that's all people talked about.
Sure.
So, you know, his power shots were against me was front double, front lat, and ab and thigh, because my fucking incisions tore and my abs were sticking out. Like, it's just the way it is. But I don't feel that he beat me in a side shot or a back shot. But you got to use, but that's what each athlete has to do. They got to figure out what's my go-to. Because if I'm equal with Ramy, or let's say Hunter or Nick in this pose, which one can I make up some ground on them? So then out of the 8 poses, how many of them do I win against each guy? It's almost like you have to run through the old school challenge round in your mind.
Yeah, exactly. People don't know what we're talking about, but
they really don't. But I'm saying that for us, you know, like, that's because that was my mentality. I was like, I got to know which shots I'm going to be most vulnerable in. And if I am, that's okay, because that's why they have other poses.
Right. When you would, I know I talked to Flex Will about this a long time ago, but he would say when he would have a pose that he was a little weaker in, he would hit 14 poses around that pose just to distract you from the fact that maybe that pose wasn't his strongest pose. Did you tend to do the same thing?
Actually, no, the internet did me in.
Well, the internet's notorious for finding the worst, the most awkward position that you're in and taking a snapshot and putting that all over the place. Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, that was the reason why I lost. So when you can zoom in 4K on things and then say that that's a glaring weakness as to why all of his other shots are crap, then the guy's not going to win. So, you know, that's not me having a pity party. That was just the reality of it. Like, that's just what happened.
So you think social media changed the way the Olympia is judged then?
Well, for sure, in a way, because not to say that the judges are manipulated from it. I'm just saying, like, the general public, like,
how could they not be manipulated by it? The judges are people. They read social media. I mean, it definitely influences their decisions. I mean,
it makes them more aware. I'm sure it makes them more aware of it. I don't know if it would sway someone, but it would make their mind say, okay, well, I need to look at this. Right. But the problem is like, what do they call it? The RAS system, where you see like one red car, you see 10 more red cars. So you say, I'm looking at Phil's stomach, that's all you're going to see, and that's all you're going to focus on. And if I have the best front double or whatever in the world, like, you're like, what? But his abs are fucked. So, like, you know, it is what it is. So the goal with all the athletes is you got to make sure that you can hide whatever you can hide. Right. And, you know, for me, it was very difficult. Like, you can't hide certain things, but, you know, like, it is what it is. Like, it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about bodybuilding. It taught me about the evolution of the sport. It went no longer from a print mag to a digital format to streaming to people hyper focusing on certain things and being the only issue, Dave. And I'll say this, I'll try to say this once. The only thing I had an issue with was, if you're going to use a certain magnification on me, are you really applying that same energy of magnification on everybody else's weaknesses?
No, because you're Mr. Olympia. That's why they did it to you.
So that's where, even for Ramy, as he goes this year, he has to be aware of that. Yeah. The increase of competition against him gets higher, but the magnification on any weakness he shows gets higher. Well, and that's what's really difficult, because how do you can say, well, this is my personal best, man. I did everything I was fucking told, and I tried hard, I dieted, I suffered. And then you have to say, well, that doesn't matter. That was last year. What can you do this year? Right.
I mean, everyone's pretty much preoccupied with the fact that he has a lot of retraction in his lats from behind in the back double. No, his lat spread is insane, but for some reason, the musculature of of his lats, the way they attach now, seem to have risen upward. I don't know if that's an injury or
I noticed that too. I mean, we all have some type of regression in our physiques at some point in time.
Right. You think that's age?
It could be a slew of things, Dave. Like, you know, you're smart with this stuff. I mean, it could be a compressed disc from lifting heavy and not getting certain therapy done. It's not something that, all it takes is just a little grass and it's going to get back to normal. It's like, no, it's a thing that happened over a period of time that wasn't addressed. And now it's like you're trying to cover it up. But see, that's the thing. No one really noticed it until he started winning. And that's how this works. So it's only going to, like, that's the craziest part about winning anything. It only gets harder to keep those people using sharper magnification on your flaws. It's inevitable. They're just going to come, and your job is to, like I told him, I said, you got to, when he won the Olympia, I told him, I said, congratulations, love you, brother, but you got to look better next year.
What did he say when you said that?
No, he said, I will. I said, promise me you will do it, because it's not enough.
Right.
And I said that as a brother. Like, I'm like, it's not enough. I'm saying that as a big brother. Like, I'm telling you what this means now. Like, if this is your era, better bring it forever.
Right.
This is just the beginning, dude. Like, otherwise you're going to be one and done.
That's right. That's right. The first one is if you only win one, they'll say, well, maybe it was a fluke. You know, once you win two, it's like you've been validated a little bit, right?
And that's where, even for Brandon, this is his moment, and I'm excited to see what he looks like, because I've heard really good positive things, and look, I want my job to be easier as well by having everybody look their absolute best. So
which never happens. Yeah.
I know, and I'm gonna be like a kid waiting for Christmas presents, and like, please, God, show me just the best. So then I don't even because again, this isn't about me. I just want to see it. I want to talk about it. I want to explain, like, this person improved here, he improved there. I don't know. The best thing would happen is if the top 5 just wowed me, right? And I know that's not going to happen. Theoretically, it's just not. But it would be nice to just be like, because I know what I would say to the audience. I know what I would tell the world. But either way, no matter what they look like, my job is, again, to edify them for what they bring to the stage. And I really do hope that the athletes know that it's coming from a genuine place. It's from a brother. I want them just to be the best they can be.
Let's talk about Derek Lunsford, who was the 212 champ last year, made that decision to move up to the Open, which I think is probably everyone's been waiting for this to happen. How will Derek Lunsford do in this lineup? I've heard predictions from winning the Olympia to not even be in the top 6. What's your insight? I mean, he works obviously with Hadi. You're friends with Hadi.
I mean, I'm expecting. I mean, selfishly, I'm expecting Hadi to have 1 and 2 at the Olympia. That's what I would want. He wouldn't be my friend, my bro, if I, but the likelihood of that happening, I mean, it's going to take some work. When it comes to Derek, I haven't seen this transformation live, like in the flesh, right? So, but based on the pictures that I've seen, I mean, he definitely made the right decision by moving up and taking on that challenge. Now, the question I have is, how well is that muscle really sticking on that bone, meaning for muscle maturity to occur? We'll have to wait and see on that. But I will say, he's got some muscle, and he's going to bring a tight waist and have conditioning. Hadi wouldn't allow him to compete in this division if he was going to lose conditioning. I know that for a fact.
Right.
I definitely see him as high as, he could. I don't necessarily see him. I can make a case for him getting 2nd or 3rd, but I don't know him having a case right out the gate of winning. I don't know. I mean, that's just I'm going to be a little reserved on that.
Right.
But I do see him as a threat. I think anyone that here's the problem with the guys competing against Derek. They've never competed against him.
True.
So they don't really know what they're going against. And Derek as well. But Derek has been around these guys, so he's just like, well, shit. Like, Derek gets to walk in to the arena as a champion.
Yeah.
He has champion pedigree already. Like, it's a fresh win as well. Like, so he knows, hey, I'm going to Olympia. I won 212. I know what it feels like just being on the stage, being crowned as a champion. Y'all better watch out for me. So he can have, I don't know his mentality. We don't talk. But I would assume that he's gunning for the number one spot. No question about it.
Yeah, plus, you know what? He's got no expectations on him. So that takes the pressure off tremendously, I think,
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't know what that would feel like. Like you're already trying to kill yourself to do 212, and then they just take the limiter off, and you're like, really? I can be whatever I want. So,
but some guys would go up and wait, and they would come in too smooth because now they're worried. Oh my God, I'm not going to be big enough now. I was a 212 guy last year. I don't think he's going to make that mistake. I really don't.
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I would probably say, given Hani's track record and Derek's, it's a week away from the competition. He's already ready to go.
Oh, he's got to be. Yeah.
I mean, if he don't, then there's going to be some trouble, and he would fall out of that top 6. But here's the shittiest problem about this Olympia. Someone's going to be outside of that top 6.
That's right.
It's going to be somebody. I don't know who, but it's going to be somebody. Someone's going to, and then you got your dark horses that we don't know. Someone could just jump into that top 6 and mess it up for everybody. So it's there's probably like what, Dave, maybe 3 disruptors that could.
Yep. Let's talk about one of them, Andrew Jacked. What do you think?
He's a disruptor. He's top of the list as far as a disruptor, if you ask me. Ton of flow, great flow to this man's physique. The muscle bellies for sure, and just. You talk about an X-frame. Look no further. I mean, it's and he's a big dude. Like, he ain't small.
Yeah.
I remember
Does
seeing.
he have the muscle maturity that you just mentioned before? Because he hasn't been training that long. Do you think he has that grainy 3D muscle that he'll need to beat guys in the top 6?
I don't think he has it, but I don't think he has to need it right now. Like,
really?
I didn't have grainy muscle at my first Olympia, and I placed 3rd. Arguably could have won the damn thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't. For some people, I think their shape and conditioning will push them up. The graininess comes in with more years of training, as you know.
Yeah.
So I do think this is what I think. I think he does have to come in a lot more conditioned. And I say a lot. Like when they said, oh, yeah, I think he's working with Farah, and he said that, oh, yeah, we didn't bring him in 100%. I'm like, okay, well, let's see what 100% shreddedness looks like.
Right. Have you ever heard anyone, they said, oh, we only brought him in at 70%. Have you ever heard of anyone doing their first pro show at only 70%? I don't believe that. I don't buy that for a minute.
I hate hearing it.
Who in their right mind would try to shoot for 70% rather than 100%, right?
Well, I bet you, I know this. You better be 100% for next weekend. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem. You're going to piss off your fans. But, I love his demeanor. He's very calm.
Yeah.
And I like that. Having a controlled aggression is key in this sport, because your cortisol goes up if you don't. Like, you're making bad decisions. You start emotionally eating when you shouldn't. Things go haywire, especially peak week. So as long as and he looks coachable as hell. So I'm excited for him. I just I like I said, I look at him as a real solid disruptor.
Yeah, I agree with you. Who else do you like in that top 10 group of people that might be someone who no one expects who winds up in that top 6? Anyone that comes to mind?
I'm very curious of what Ian is going to look.
Yeah.
I'm very curious because he's been around. He's talked his talk. And if he's gonna continue to talk and say that he can do it, this is the year. This is the year really that people get to set their, like, plant their flag, so to speak, because everyone is gonna. I mean, this is a very competitive lineup,
right?
So I would say for him, being a taller guy, being a bigger guy, this is his opportunity to say, look, like, I didn't win the Arnold. I did this. I did that. I've done the Olympia. This is my opportunity to say, look, I'm lean. I'm round. You know, I'm ready to go. And it'll also give him confidence too. I believe, like, if he were to place in that top 6, 7 spot,
Absolutely.
I know it would give him a lot of confidence going into next season. But I do, when I think of his physique, I think, well, he's been competing longer than a lot of these newer guys. So I can't, like, here's the problem. Like, I'm not going to disrespect someone that has been doing this for a while, that's had good placings, and just throw in a new guy, like, let's say a Crizzo, and say that he's just going to dominate the guy. I think a great lineup is going to be the 3 guys that we just mentioned. Throw in a Crizzo, throw in an Ian, throw in Andrew Jack. Let's see who the tall, big dude is.
Right.
Like, this is where this Olympia could be very fun. You could say, okay, we got the big guys out of the way. Show me Bonac, show me
Lunsford, show
me Derek, and show me
Hadi. Yeah, that's what I want to see.
Let's get it on. Like, let's see this. And you know, there's another dark horse, you know, Samson, you know, like, but right. I want him shredded, man. I'm over here stuttering because I'm like, I've seen certain photos and I'm like, how many weeks were these out? So, and I don't know how people prep. So, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, usually around 5 weeks out for me, I'm looking, and I never share these pictures. So I don't, you know, I'm usually pretty ripped. I just kind of creep on in. So, because I don't want to guess a week out.
Sure.
But for him, he has great shape. He's made improvements. Everybody's going to have to really eat their words. I mean, everybody said that they weighed 280 to 300 freaking pounds. You know, like, everybody said they're gaining 8 to 10 pounds of muscle.
Of course, yeah.
What a better place to put all your chips on the table in Las Vegas for the Olympia, right? And just say, this I brought, let's go. So
at the end of the day, are you predicting a Ramy repeat? Is that what you think?
I would be foolish to not bet a larger percentage on Ramy.
Yeah, exactly.
Out of 100%, if I said, okay, 40% is Ramy, 30%, 25% Brandon, you know what I'm saying? Like,
sure,
Ramy's good. How do you go against a 2-time champion he still beat people while he was off?
Right.
That's like,
is it still Ramy versus Brandon in your mind as far as the 2 best guys?
No, and that's no.
Okay.
Not at all. I totally believe that it's not just Ramy's show either. I think that Ramy could lose. It's just, if he does come in the way he says he is, or his coach says he is, there could be a shift in second, third, fourth. It could, you know, like, I really believe that it's truly going to be Saturday night. We're going to find out. Like, I don't see it being a show where it's like lights out, game over Friday. I think it's going to be a constant battle, because they're going to have to call these guys out over and over and over again. And we're going to see people sweating. We're going to see people sweating their asses off. And
you were notoriously called Mr. Saturday Night. I mean, you always came back better on Saturday, like a world beater on Saturday. Why do you think that you always peaked better the second day? Was it that your nerves were less? You ate more? What was the reason that you always looked better on Saturday?
I think my body just relaxed, because I was going, let's fucking go. Like, you know, I was that dude, you know, like
I call you Mr. Sunday, because when I would see you in Sunday in the gym doing a photo shoot the next day, you would look even crazier usually.
That's actually, you know, it's funny. I was talking to Jason Breeze, who's filmed me many years.
Yeah.
Take these photos. I needed a couple pictures just for I'm putting on my birthday's on the Sunday after the Olympia.
Really? Oh, that's cool.
I'm gonna do a nightclub appearance with RXMuscle. So they were like, hey, pictures, and I looked at these pictures last night. And I was like, damn, dude, this was like the day after. Oh shit!
I remember seeing you in the gym. You looked crazy on
Like
that
that's
Sunday.
nasty. Here's the problem with that. It only lasted for like an hour, you know, and all the food and stuff, it blurs everything, you know, it blurs foods or, you know, thicken up my waist a little bit or something. But like arms and shoulders and shit, it was just like, what the hell? But yeah, this prejudging is going to be brutal. They better be prepared. Saturday, the confirmation round. I mean, it's whoever wins this one, they earned it. They earned this one. But yeah, for me, I to answer your question, I was saying the late Peter McGuff said, Mr. Saturday Night. Hani and I, we after Friday, we would. My ass would be online. I'm like, look at these pictures. Okay. All right. Okay. And then we would always construct a plan on how we're going to slam the door on these guys.
Right.
Because the difference between my physique and the rest was that I had more than one version. Yeah. So I could come in a little fuller one night and then come in tighter the next and not lose super fullness because just my shape and being 3D.
Yeah.
Where the other guy was like hard for them just to hold on. So Saturday, I always weighed less. But yet even Chad would hit up Hani like, oh, he's totally 5 pounds heavier than he was. I usually was weighing like in the 240s, like 245 and up on Friday. I'd be like 239 after we got done on Saturday.
That's crazy.
And people were like, you look like fucking like you fueled up, like you ate all day. And I'm like, what I did was it had to be a stress hormone thing. It was more just like,
I think so.
I ate and I just slept.
Yep.
And I wouldn't do the expo on Saturday normally. So I would sleep and eat and sleep, eat, pose, repeat. Like that's it on Saturday. And then I'd cut the food off at 4:30 and just kind of graze. And you know, I was always in the happy spirits, like I'm gonna kill these fools, and I did, you know, but yeah. It was probably just my body just relaxing, and sleep is everything, you know.
Right. So you're fourth. You like the 2-day format where you do Friday night and Saturday night, or do you like a 1-day format better?
Selfishly, I would 1 day. Selfishly, I don't think I would have even lost if it was 1 day. To be quite honest, I think I would have been better if it was 1 day. Kind of like what people saw at the Arnold in 2010. Even though I lost. Because then we just throw everything at it.
Right.
Whereas Friday, you're realizing like I had different game plans for each year based on my physique, but also who I felt was going to be in that top 3.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Okay.
So I always chose like, okay, this is what we're going to do this year because more likely Ramy's going to be second or third. Okay, well, I got to train this way. I got to eat this way. I'm going to prep this way. So I have a different game plan for each person. And lo and behold, it worked because every athlete would show how they looked every freaking week. And I'm like, oh, that's what they're doing? Okay, I got something for that. Boom, boom, boom.
Interesting.
Because, and I treated it like if we were boxing,
right?
The counter punch is always the knockout punch. Typically, it does more damage. So if you
studied your competition, essentially, is what you did.
Hell yeah. You would be silly not to do that. But to study is one thing, but to worry is another. I never worried about it. I just knew what their strengths and weaknesses were. And my job was to make sure that if I was, let's say Ramy, for instance, I knew that my legs could never be the same size as Ramy.
Right.
But I could get them bigger. Maybe it doesn't get dwarfed, right? So then notice it. No one really said, oh man, like Phil this, like he got dwarfed. Like, no, I didn't. I just made sure I was more round. I made sure that my back was more round because his back isn't that round. It really isn't. It's
just
wide.
It's wide, yeah.
But it's not as round as mine. So I knew how to train for that. I would do the rowing movements and I would do the stretching. I would do this and that, you know, all that stuff. And I knew my conditioning would just make it jump out at you. So that's how I prepped for him. When it was Sean, I didn't really know it was Sean. And that snuck up on me, but no excuses. I lost, but it was the perfect storm for him to get the win. It was the perfect storm. And if I had to do that again, if we would have ran that back, let's say in 2019, I would have made sure the abs were like perfect.
Well, I always say, you beat yourself. It's like when Jay beat himself against Dexter that year,
Yeah, I was up there. It is one of those things where the judges will give you an opportunity and it's their call at the end of it. And, bodybuilding doesn't matter how hard you dieted, how hard you prepped, what obstacles you went through. All that matters is what you look like on Friday, Saturday night. That's all that matters. You can tell stories in your book later about stories of triumph and how you got there. I have them. But all that matters is what they're seeing, because all that external stuff of you, oh, well, he works so hard. Well, you're not getting a title based on how hard you work. You're getting a title based on how well you look.
Right.
So it's, yeah, that would be another podcast for us to talk about. Like, I won, but overall, I always managed to have a game plan for each person just in case if they were ready. And, but I started that from the very beginning. If you don't train like that from the very beginning, it's hard to change it midway through your bodybuilding, because your body's already susceptible for just one look.
Right.
That is it.
Who do you think will? Well, I'll rephrase the question. What would your advice be to Chris Bumstead, who's been one of the most dominant, Olympia champs that we've seen? The guy has got a crazy following on social media. He's a likable guy. He seems to be in the driver's seat. What would you like to see him do? And can he be beat this year? Is it even possible?
The answer, I think, for anyone is yes, anyone can be beaten. But at the same time, the likelihood is very slim. And here's why. Because he's done it 3 times.
Right.
Tough, man. You have an edge. You have an edge. The crowd is going to side with you. They deliver energy to you. His back is ridiculous. His conditioning is going to be top notch. I can only imagine what him and Hadi are going to do. It's going to be very hard to knock that champ out. Now, I will say, Urs is knocking on the door. I saw what he looked like the other day. I'm like, holy smokes, this shit is nice. But what's crazy is so is Breon. Breon looks fucking dope too. So it's very interesting. But Chris is kind of an anomaly in this division, because his height and weight, he's not capped on the weight side of things. So he could actually gain like another 3 pounds, 4 pounds, 5 pounds.
It's crazy, right? That he can still keep growing, this guy.
Right.
Yeah.
So he has more room for improvement where these other guys don't. So it's like a Breon, he's tapped out. So he can only refine so much. And if they don't praise him for it, then he has to move up a category or whatever, right?
Sure.
Dino from Brazil, this is an opportunity for him to make a name. He already has a name, but in order to beat Chris, you have to have a full back, no question about it. It has to start from the hips on up. You have to have lat sweep, because he developed a little bit of that as he went on. Your conditioning has to be on point. You don't necessarily have to have the biggest arms, because he doesn't, and he still beats everybody. He has better flow than everybody, and he has presentation. He has the confidence. So these guys have to know going in, you have to develop a power shot. There has to be a shot that like a Terrence Ruffin or whoever it is. You got to know, this pose beats anyone in the world.
Yeah.
And if they can't answer that question, if they were being on a press conference and they say, what pose do you have, no bullshit, that you beat everyone in the world in your division in? And if they don't have one, you're not going to win.
Yep.
You're not going to win, dude. I'm sorry, because they're just going to say, well, you're just good enough. But if you come in there with the best front double bicep or the best side chest they've seen in that division ever, then you're probably going to push the champion to possibly losing.
Interesting. Who do you think is going to win the 212 division now that the title has been vacated by Derek Lunsford?
That's Kamal all day.
Mr. Consistency.
I'd be a fool. I mean, you got what? Then shit, I just forgot.
You got Sean Clarita too,
Yeah,
and you got Breon.
Shit.
I mean, you got what's his
Sean.
name?
I forgot. Sean's not doing open. Here I am. I thought Sean was doing open. I forgot all about.
Nope.
It's those two nonstop. Sean Clarita is just freaking. what a pack of dynamite that physique is. It's just dynamite. Like that's dynamite. It's like he hits shots and you're like, dude, like how? Like talk about muscle per square inch. He like maximized the hell out of it and then went at it again. So it's out of those two, in my opinion. I mean, the evolution of Sean Clarita has just been phenomenal. Just phenomenal. I remember seeing him backstage and no one even knew who he was.
No.
And to see him now, you know, come into his own and just looking at these poses right here, I'm just like, fuck, dude, like the striated quads.
He's like a mini Phil, right? He's got a lot of round muscle.
He's got a round muscle, man, and he's not missing anything.
No.
And neither is really Kamal. So that's why I look at those two as a lock. Like it's just going to come down, in my opinion. I mean, I could be wrong too, guys. Like there's going to be people say, oh, like that's all they cared about. Guys, that's the beauty about what's going to happen Friday and Saturday. I get to see it. And then I say, you know what? I'm wrong. I thought this, and this. But new challengers are always on the horizon. I think it's important that we keep that in mind. And
what do you think about Keon?
Keon is on the horizon, man. I mean, but you know, he has to nail this thing.
Yeah, he needs conditioning.
He's got to nail it. Like he's got to nail it. It can't be, oh well, I missed. Like you can't miss. It's you don't miss against champions. If you miss against a champion, they're gonna make you pay for it.
Yep.
So you have to bring the pain. Like you have to. It all comes down to power shots. You got to be able to say, no one beats me in this pose. You got to have like, if you're Keon, you have to have 3 poses that says like I dominate these guys in.
And I think he would. I think he would if he like you said, if he brings the conditioning. I think he's got 3 power shots that he can.
For sure, I think so. And that's really the nut of it. I mean, like he's got the size and you got to just come in. We got to be like, oh my,
right, yep.
You know, he is so shredded, like it looks like he's gonna die. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you're right, but that's exactly what we need to see.
Like you gotta see, especially in that category because of the weight limit. You know, being 212, we expect a smaller guy to be supremely ripped. Yeah. You know, so that's
one of the only divisions where you actually see guys all in shape. We've seen it happen before. Like every top guy is like shredded, to the bone because they gotta make weight.
And they got to make weight. And, I don't know how they do that. Like they make weight and then they try to eat up, 5 pounds or whatever. Yeah. Hopefully they just.
You don't gain as much weight as people think you're going to gain 10 pounds. You don't gain that much because you're dehydrating at the same time. So it's not like, you can only put so much into the muscle,
Yeah, you shouldn't want to do that. Like that means that you did something. That means you did something within your prep that you shouldn't have done. Like probably let's just call it what it is. It's probably a bad drug protocol too. Like, it's probably something foolish that's why people miss so bad.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
If you're not ready a week out, I always say things. And if you are ready a week out, like you should be, if you start doing kooky, crazy things at a week out, I always say the chances of you messing yourself up are way greater than the chances of you looking better. And
100%.
we see people do it all the time, though. All the time it happens.
The discipline that has to be exhibited during these moments, though a week or greater, your level of discipline has to become greater as you get more fatigued getting ready for that. Because Hadi and I we would have a term called the fuck up fairy, and the fuck up fairy will show up during this week.
Yeah.
And also 5% better or 20% worse by you going out and eating burgers or pie filling or whatever the hell you do.
I never understood when people did that crazy.
It's so silly. It's like, hey, Phil, like, what do you do like the week of the show? I'm like, well, first of all, I was never really eating cheat meals throughout the prep. You weren't? No, dude. Like, because I would just eat more of it.
Yeah.
I would shit probably on my entire career. You have to get Hani to confirm it, but I could probably say is the cheat meals that I had just during the Olympia wins.
Yeah.
Were probably this many.
Wow. That's it.
And
Huh?
yeah, because for me, it just wasn't necessary. I mean, could I have? It was necessary later on in my career, yes, because it was like my metabolism. I had more muscle,
Yeah.
but we still wanted to reserve that for the week of the Olympia.
Did you and Hani ever argue like at the Olympia? Like, would you get into fights and scream at each other, like, and then make up afterwards and stuff like that?
No, we've had. I mean, we joke around a lot, and I joke around with him like a brother. You know, I'll slap him in the stomach or up, you know, like, or talk shit to him. But I mean, that's my guy. You know, it's just. But as far as arguing, no. Like, I think we've been intense, but like as far as like, we need to do this or you're fucking. No, never. We've always managed. We've had a level. We've had a great level of respect for each other. And I think that's why we work so well together, is because we respect each other for what we bring to the table. But and for me, I always wanted to be able to trust one coach. I only wanted one throughout my career.
You only had one. You're probably one of the few people who had one coach their entire career.
Yeah. So I had one coach. I was very fortunate for that. But as far as like arguing, I'm trying to think I mean, it wasn't even a real argument. I just flipped out on him one time, and it was when I looked ridiculous at that Ironman Pro.
Oh yeah.
And I suffered for that, you know, to get like that. We were in the car and from the show, and I was like, man, I need to eat, bro. Like, I need a burger or something. He's like, you don't need a burger. I was like, man, I need a fucking burger. And he's like, well, there's like an In-N-Out not too far from here. And I was like, all right. He's like, but you can't have salt, man. You can't have salt. I was like, why? And he's like, because you have the Arnold Classic in like 2 weeks. And I was like, fuck you. I'm going to do whatever I want. It was one of those, you know, it was just like, you know, like whatever.
Did you have the burger?
I had one instead of two.
You know,
yeah, I would talk shit to him and be like, okay, all right, I'll get 2 burgers, but one of them I'll throw salt on it. And then for me, I always had a problem with my palate. Like, if I had salt after shows, it would taste so bad that, you know, I've done shows, Dave, where I cut salt out 6 weeks out. Like,
what? Whoa.
Yeah, wow. I've done that shit just to, like I said, I was different, dude. Like, I did things on that extreme because I felt that if I was depleted in that aspect, and I could still be round, like no one knew, everybody was round. Well, I'm like, if I can be round with very minimal sodium intake, extremely little, and still do 2 hour and a half of cardio on a step mill in altitude, training 6 days a week.
Crazy.
I'm going to then load up the week of the show and I'm going to blow everybody away. But I
did that. Wow.
But I suffered, man. Like, I freaking suffered. And, you know, I wasn't the guy that talked about it all the time.
I didn't know you had to do so much cardio. That's crazy that you had to do that much cardio in the beginning of your career.
Well, because we realized that me focusing on size wasn't going to cut it.
Right.
So just be shredded. And
I thought you just had a really fast metabolism, but you obviously really worked hard to get that lean. That's great.
Yeah, because I also made sure that I wasn't taking hormones like T3 and stuff like that to solidify that as well. So I wanted to make sure that I was always staying an athlete and just making sure that I don't really, you know, I can take a fat burner, that's fine, but I want to get the conditioning. So then when I do happen to, like, later on in my career, I needed more food. I didn't need as much cardio either because I had burnt out that nasty brown fat that I had early on in my career, that really it was, you know, just a superficial layer of fat that I would retain after shows. And I wouldn't therefore have to diet as hard, you know, or as long later on in the career. I would still do it, but I didn't have to. If he wanted to pull me off of cardio, like
a week out or something,
Yeah, like it wouldn't be as bad. Like you say, okay, we'll do like 40 minutes and then just go for a walk around the block for your second session or something. It wasn't at the beginning of my career where you're on 100 grams of carbs for 8 freaking weeks and you're like ready to pull your freaking skin off and all cardio. But that's also how, like I said, that's how I never was out of shape at a show. I was always conditioned.
Yeah.
Because I earned that muscle on my glutes and hamstrings.
Well, it's important that people hear that because a lot of people don't realize. They think, Phil's always ripped, but no, you worked your ass off, literally.
I worked really hard, and one thing I wouldn't say I regret, but one thing I do wish I did back then was, but we didn't. It wasn't a thing back then. Like journal it all the time on social media.
Yeah.
I filmed like what I was doing every day. Like people would just have to take my word for it, or ask like Dylan Armbrust, like, hey, what was Phil doing?
No, I wish I had 5 videos from back in the day when I trained at my biggest. We had nothing like that. We didn't have phones, nothing. There was no video camera.
You really went in there with just animal, I'm going. And I tell people, I'm like, when I see them, I'm like, this person didn't suffer enough. Because you can tell, like, oh, well, they trained hard, but they didn't suffer with cardio and diet enough.
You could see it in people's faces. I see it right away. When they had the puffy cheeks, I know they didn't suffer enough. I knew they're not in shape.
That and the fact that they're having inflammatory responses to the hormones they're taking, for sure. Like,
possibility too, yeah.
They're doing a combination of both because they're thinking like, oh, I'm going to stay round and this and that. It's like, no, you can actually eat more food if you did a little bit more cardio.
Exactly.
But 20-year-old wants to listen to me,
Yeah, you're only a 7-time Mr. Olympia. Phil, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day. I think, once again, we're all looking forward to seeing you in that booth doing the live stream. You guys haven't signed up, check it out at olympiaproductions.com. Make sure you sign up this week so you get the discount. Next week, it's going to be a little more expensive.
Oh, yeah.
When are you going out to Vegas, Phil?
I leave on Wednesday. So,
okay.
Yep. Cool. So, everybody, like Dave said, go on olympiaproductions.com, get it now because that price will go up. I did talk to Dan a few days ago and he said, hey, remind these guys because we're going to raise the price up. So don't procrastinate, get it done. You're going to see the best bodybuilders in the world again, making history back in Las Vegas. And yours truly will be commentating the whole damn thing. And I'm going to be having a great time. And I really hope that all the athletes that have been watching us talk, do your job. Do your job and be professional all weekend long. And especially for these fans, because at the end of the day, there's fans that are going to be tuning in and they draw inspiration from your hard work. So don't fuck this up, man.
Well said, Phil. And guys, that's going to take us to the end of another episode of RXMuscle's Iron Road to the Olympia 2022. I'm Dave Palumbo with Phil Heath. We'll see you next time.